What's up, everybody? Booty Noodles here. Today I have a new build for you. It is a Frostclaw Ignite build that is super cheap to put together. It needs only one unique item, really, maybe two to get offline, but both of them are very easy to find. Doesn't need any legendaries, but at the same time, it can scale very well with legendaries and can bring you into reasonably high corruption. I've killed 1,000 corruption boss with this, and it worked fine. But more so, the point of this build is to be a cheap build that you can use to scale into, some other builds like my Spark Charge Artillery build that I posted a week ago. So with that, let us first get into just really a high level on what's going on here. You're just using all of the Frostclaw hits to apply as many Ignite stats as you can and scaling those Ignite stacks with elemental damage over time. So we'll start with looking at the skills. Obviously, Frostclaw is the most important one. Now, with Frostclaw, obviously Frostclaw has a very high mana cost, so it's important that you reduce Frostclaw's mana cost as much as you can. And I talked about this in my other video. So if you are having issues with your mana cost, go ahead and look at my Frostclaw mana juggling video. But on a high level, as long as your Frostclaw mana cost is below 24 and you have spec'd into all three of these nodes in the bottom left, you should theoretically never run out of mana. Now, really all you're doing apart from that, speccing in to get all these extra bounces, since these nodes give you all these extra bounces that make it bounce all over the place and able to apply more Ignite stacks. You're converting it to fire here with this node, and you're making sure you get Volley of Glass and Hand of More Details, because all those extra projectiles means that you have many more chances to essentially apply Ignite stacks. One thing to note also is that when you convert this cold skill to a fire skill, it converts all chill chance from all sources to Ignite chance. So that's why we have 3 points in this, because each point in that gives you 20% chill chance, which converts to 20% Ignite chance. So it gives you a total of 60% Ignite chance from that. And then you're coming up over here to get increased ailment duration. This is essentially with Ignite a 25% more damage multiplier. It's really just that simple. Your Ignites last longer, they do more damage. Up here is important to get mana efficiency. As long as, again, you're below 24 mana cost, you should be fine. And this is important for the minus mana cost. You get a little bit of ward on cast from this. And that is pretty much what you're looking for in Frostclaw. Everything else is mostly secondary to Frostclaw, but we'll quickly go through the other skills as well. So for Runic Invocation, we're mostly just using this for the Cold Fire Cold Runic Invocation, which, as you can see here, gives you Raywind's Frostclaw. It gives you a bunch of ward as well as a huge amount of damage reduction. 30% less damage taken is just such an insanely strong defensive skill. And so in this skill, you're essentially coming here and taking Immutable Order, which allows you to not have to worry about, casting the right skills in the right order to get Raywind's Frostclaw. It's just based on the elements on your bar. So I have Flame Brush converted into cold, Flame Ward is fire, and then Snap Freeze is cold. So that's cold, fire, cold. It skips over the Runic Invocation when it's, doing the order of your skill bar. And so that is how I get Raywind's Frostguard. And then over here, this is just these two nodes essentially just give you a chance to double cast. This gives you a bunch of cooldown reduction, and this gives you a little bit of extra cast speed for 3 seconds after you cast Runic Invocation. And that is all you're doing with Runic Invocation. Flame Rush, this is your movement skill. You're taking all your mana efficiency and cooldown recovery speed. Ideally, you can get over 150% uncapped fire res for that extra double bonus. You're coming down here and you're making sure you convert it into cold for that Runic Invocation that I just talked about. This is a great node giving you Frenzy. And then you have to make sure you get this. It casts Static Orb in the opposite direction, because that is how we get our static word cast, which give us Lightning Aegis. And Lightning Aegis is super important because well, for one, it gives you a whole lot of defense, 25% less damage taken. Again, that's insanely strong. Plus, with our idols, we take 2 idols here that give increased cast speed while you have Lightning Aegis. And so that is also extremely important. Over on the right side here, we take speed and range. And then we take 3 points into this just so we can get this note, Fire Eater. Now, this might be a personal preference whether or not you take it, but this is really how you can generate an absolutely insane amount of ward when you're mapping or even killing a boss. At obviously, the sacrifice is you consume all your Ignite stacks and they don't do any damage. But if you have, your Ignite fully stacked on a boss and you flame rush through them, you'll go from maybe 5,000-6,000 ward to over 30,000 ward just like that. So this is a very important defensive node. Okay, next we can have a look at Static Orb. Static Orb is its entire purpose is to give us Lightning Aegis. So really we would be fine if we only had 4 points or 5 points just to get this Lightning Aegis. Other than that, I come over here just to reduce the mana cost with these nodes, and then with everything else, you can just, take these. It's really, you don't even need the rest of those points. You can just assign them wherever you want. It's just all about getting Lightning Aegis with the Static Orb. And then finally, this is just for defense. I like to come and I take the Cast Flame Ward when stunned. Obviously, I come over and I get the extra charges. Some less damage on hits and elemental damage taken. And then over here, duration and mana efficiency is important. And then I like to take this because 250% increased fire damage. It is actually a noticeable buff when you have it active. So those are all of the skills. The next thing that we can talk about are the passives here. It's pretty straightforward. You're just taking this node, all the increased fire damage, and then the increased cast speed here. Nothing else really is that important in just the mage tree. In Runemaster, you are increased mana and cast speed. You don't really care about the 5-point bonus here because you're not casting 0 cost mana skills, but just the increased cast speed is really important. Intelligence and ward on cast, mostly for the ward on cast, but intelligence is great because it gives you some ward retention. Again, kind of intelligence. This is again more for the defensive bonuses that you get from the intelligence, as well as a less bonus damage taken from crits with a catalyst. Right here, you generate a ton of ward on cast with this because you pretty much always have 3 runes above your head since you're casting so fast. And so when you have those 3 runes above your head, each rune you get 24 ward per cast. So you get 72 ward on cast just from this node alone, which is extremely strong. And then this gives you a bunch of ward retention since we're running a scepter. Down here, this is just a little bit of a defensive buff, and it allows us to come over here and get all this extra ignite chance, which is super strong. This gives us more damage to bosses, 10% since we do have a raw rune. We get a bunch of cooldown reduction from this node, and this gives us a bit of elemental penetration. And then finally over here in the sorcerer tree, this is actually very important. Arcane Momentum is great because you get a 25% extra cast speed once it's fully stacked. We come over here for some extra armor, mostly just to get us enough points to get this node here, which gives us fire damage leech, which is very important since we are running a Twisted Heart. And that is the passive skills. So the next thing we can talk about is the itemization. So for the itemization, I'm actually going to pull up the links on Last Epoch tools because while I have pretty solid gear here, it will make more sense because I have like the perfect stuff on Last Epoch tools as well as kind of the starter version as well, which I'll show. I'll show both versions. So here is Last Epoch tools. This is the starter version, and this is kind of the best in slot version of the build. So we'll start with the best in slot version. Firestarter's Torch is a key part of the build. You get a whole lot of minus spell mana cost, which enables you to spam your Frostclaw and keep your Frostclaw mana cost under 24, which is kind of that key number. And then getting cast speed, ignite on hit, and chill on hit. Again, remember that Chill is converted to Ignite with Frostclaw, so that's essentially just a bunch of extra Ignite chance. With your body armor, I would say you should definitely try and get this base because it gives you that increased cast speed. And then apart from that, just Ignite on hit, fire damage over time, and then, any resistances, or you can get armor as suffixes. Offhand Catalyst, again, you're just going for increased cast speed, increased fire damage, increased damage over time, and then any resistances again for the suffixes. I would definitely try and get a Opulent Focus as a base because the extra word per second, word retention is very strong, and intelligence is great too because it gives you cooldown reduction and word retention. For your helmet, I think that this is the best, but it's a very close call between that and the Calamity with similar stats on it. The reason why I chose this one is because of really just the second to last stat line there, where it gives you a bunch of increased duration of Ignite, chill, shock, fire, so on and so forth. That increased duration, again, that's kind of just like 50% more multiplier for your Ignite damage. If they last longer, they can do more damage, and that's really good for when you're killing bosses and stuff. Again, you could also try and run a Calamity. I would only say that you run this helmet if you can get it with 3 legendary potential. Otherwise, I just run a Calamity because the Calamity does have a whole lot of, it gives you Ignite chance, fire damage, and increased cast speed, all of which are amazing for this build. So, until you can get this with legendary potential and get those 2 prefixes on it, you're probably just better off running a Calamity, which is also super easy to find and very low level that you can equip it. For your amulet, you're just going for cast speed, elemental damage, and elemental damage over time. Chance to ignite on hit as a suffix, and then any any other resistances or anything that you want. For your rings, strangely enough, this set ring I think is best in slot. It gives you a ton of ignite chance on hit. It gives you fire damage over time and cast speed, as well as increased fire damage in the implicit. So I mean, it'd be very hard to find a replacement for this ring. Honestly, I would run 2 of them, but the Ashes of Mortality is also very important for your ward generation. This first stat on the unique, where you have a chance to gain 2 ward per ignite on the target, you can generate a ton of ward on bosses or even elites with this, because you have over 1,000 stacks of ignite, which generates you thousands of ward every 2 seconds pretty much. Plus it gives you cast speed, which you can't get on any normal rings. Ward retention, fire damage are also all great stats, and if you can get it with some legendary potential, you can make it even stronger. So until you get this, you could probably just run two of these and you'd be fine. But again, this ring is very important for that extra ward generation that it provides you. Now with the belt, again, I only use this because it lets you move around the maps really fast, just for the Traversal School cooldown. But again, it's totally unnecessary. This is absurdly expensive to get. I would mostly just recommend getting a belt that has increased elemental damage over time, increased fire damage, and then some defensive suffixes on it. For your relic, again, we're going Twisted Heart. This gives us a lot of ward generation. All the extra points to Frostclaw are very useful, and gives you some cast speed as well. So, before you get this, you have some other options. You don't need all the extra levels. You can just use a normal relic. But this is definitely going to be your best in slot. For boots, we are running Fiery Dragon Shoes because they give us a whole lot of fire damage and fire penetration with Ignite, which is great. They also give us a whole lot of defensive. It almost completely reduces the bonus damage taken from critical strike chance. And when combined with the passive here, since we have a catalyst, we're over capped on that. So I could actually take points out of this node. But yes, we no bonus damage taken from critical strike chance, which is very strong. And then obviously putting a bunch of movement speed and haste or frenzy as the experimental affix would be very valuable. Now, finally, we can talk about these gloves. And these gloves, you might be wondering why the hell I have them. And the reason is because it's that 100% of bleed chance converted to ignite chance. Now, this is very interesting because you can get bleed chance as a blessing. Right here, you can get up to a 100% chance to bleed on hit, which essentially means that these gloves give me an extra up to 100% chance to ignite on hit. Plus, they have some intelligence and vitality for survivability. Increased fire damage over time is great, and then as much legendary potential as you can get on them is fine. Obviously, this is very unnecessary. This is kind of more of a super endgame item. Before that, just getting cast speed, damage over time is more than enough on the gloves. For idols, idols are very straightforward. Throne of Ambition is great. It gives you a bunch of survivability and more fire damage. Increased ignite duration, again, is very strong. Fire damage over time is great. For these idols, getting the increased cast speed while you have Lightning Aegis is that extra cast speed is incredibly strong when you're trying to apply as many ignite stacks in as little as time as possible. And then any defensive idols in these last 3 slots you can put in at your own volition. So now we can talk about kind of what the minimum gear is for this. You could pretty much start this as soon as you can equip this this weapon, which is like level 5 or something. It's super low. It requires level 1. Yeah, I mean, so this is you can start running this build at the very beginning of the game. Firestarter's torches are very cheap. Even ones with a lot of LP are very cheap. So that is why I have one with legendary affixes on it. It is important that you get that minus spell mana cost on it. Getting the implicit already has -4, and then getting the prefix with another -4 means -8. Really saves you a whole lot. If you can't get as much, again, you can swap the idols around and get an idol that has mana cost efficiency with Frostclaw, but ideally you get -4 spell mana cost, or even -5 with a tier 7. You might even be able to get away just fine with -3 at a tier 5. Again, you can run the Calamity, and then all of this is pretty straightforward. It's almost always the same stats as everything else. Just, you don't need any of the exalted stuff. Frostclaw, you don't have quite as many points in Frostclaw, but that's okay. We just spec out of this node here that gives us increased ailment duration, and this node here, that's, those extra 2 points that we're missing, and then we're just fine. So you can get started very early with this. You can pretty much level with Ignite. Actually, Ignite is one of the strongest things to level with, since damage over time is very, very strong early game, and then falls off a little bit more late game. So I will have links to both of these planners in the description, so be sure to check those out. Next thing that I want to talk about is just stat priority. I know I've covered this a little bit, but essentially you're looking for cast speed and chance to ignite, and then elemental damage over time on anything that you can get elemental damage over time on. And if you can't get that, then just getting fire damage or elemental damage is great. As far as actual attributes, you want to try and get fit in as much intelligence as you can. The only thing you're getting from it is cooldown reduction and ward retention, but both of those are great. You do want ward retention for your survivability, so anywhere that you can fit in some intelligence, it doesn't hurt to take it. And then lastly, I want to talk about just kind of how to play the build. It's very simple. It plays very similarly to the Spark Charge Artillery build in my previous videos. You're essentially holding down your Frostclaw. You use your Flame Rush to go around, and then I pretty much just hold down my W key. You can put it on numlock or do a macro if you want, and just essentially just cast it as soon as it's off cooldown. The Reowin's Frostguard, it lasts 13 or 14, yeah, it lasts 13 seconds, and my cooldown for this is 8 seconds, so you have pretty much permanent uptime on that 30% reduced damage taken. and that's pretty much what you do. I don't really ever manually cast Flame Ward unless I know, like maybe on T4 on Julra, when I know she's about to do her big hit. You can cast that and you'll be able to tank it. But mostly I just have it on my bar, and so whenever I get stunned, it automatically casts it for me. And then snap freeze, I just use to freeze bosses pretty much. It's, it can definitely save your life. I don't have any skill points spec'd into it. Obviously, it's not specialized at all. It's just great to have on your bar as a defensive skill. So that is that. I hope this was all super useful. I think this is a great starter build. It can get you into very high corruption. I have this right now is at 900 corruption. I die sometimes. Killing the boss is a little bit slow, but it's very viable. And you can use it to transition over into, for example, the Spark Charge Artillery build when you are ready. So be sure to like, subscribe, join my live streams. Leave a comment if you have any questions. I try and get to all the questions as soon as I can. And have fun. I will see you around in my next video.